out of the TV and into your eyeballs, brother, because it's time for me to crawl out of my gamer goblin hole once again this year to tell you all about the stuff I played this past year, 2024. Both new, mostly new, but a little bit of old stuff too before we get into my 10 favorite games of 2024. I took a little bit of a break in January, so I'm a bit late with it this year. Sorry about that, but I really do think that was a good choice because it allowed me to catch up on a lot of games I wanted to play this past year that I didn't quite get around to. So now I got a big old meaty chunk of games for you, hopefully a lot of which you've never seen before.
It was definitely a low budget year for me. These were the only two big budget expensive games I got. Otherwise, this was hugely a year for the indie games with me. Specifically indie horror, because dude, so many wicked sick independent horror games, many of which I've been following for ages, finally came out. So I've been playing cool and weird and unique horror games all god dang year. It's been a good one. Hollow Body brought back and absolutely nailed that flat PS2 horror look. Something about it I just can't get enough of. It is a very simple game, there's not really a whole lot to it, but man, going through this with how it looks and feels is just mesmerizing. Sorry We're Closed was the game that finally brought back that wicked cool Killer 7 horror gameplay where you're bouncing between the fixed angles and the first person perspective looking for what's coming at you. Hanako's Late Homework had me exploring the haunted hallways of this PS1 looking school as I escaped the claws of this big red beast. After I covered it a few months back, they actually released a brand new updated expanded version with all sorts of new areas and puzzles and lots of unlockable costumes. If you like adorable games and classic tank control horror, you gotta play Hanako's Late Homework. One indie horror game I had on the bucket list for a good while and finally got around to this year because it had an updated console port as well as an updated PC version adding tons of stuff was Elisa. Now I don't see this being for everybody, but if you are neck deep and good at those tank control, resource management, classic PS1 style horror games, this thing is a jam. Like everything from the voice acting to the visuals to the way it plays, it totally nails everything I loved about these sorts of games. And hey, one last one, this one was little and free. Just an hour-long little experience, but rental. It was adorable as it was chilling, and that hallway of mirrors felt like madness, dude.
I played a lot of PS3 this year. I don't know why. It's just neat going back to one of these things and grabbing some trophies on some old games. Playing the PS3 version Just Cause 2 on a CRT is a really nice reminder of how good we have it versus how much we didn't back then. You can barely read the words and the frame rate's terrible.
But this is how I used to play all video games back in high school. And yeah, it is weird coming back because despite how chuggy it feels, I'm like still doing pretty well. I feel like I have a lot of control over this thing. I'm always thinking like, how did I do it back then? But I don't know, you actually come back and like you wouldn't believe how fast you get used to it. And before you know it, you're not even thinking about it.
It's a humbling experience, especially going back and playing the original PS3 version of Dark Souls 2. I've always wanted to try the original because I know Scholars rearranges a lot of stuff. Now I get why people don't really like Dark Souls 2 that much. I didn't that much the first time I played it either, but I tell you, when you get to play through 11 of Dark Souls 2, it's pretty hard not to get the platinums in both the PS3 and the PS4 versions. Hey, any Dark Souls 2 homies in the chat, leave a comment below because this game gets hated on way too much. I'm realizing that I really like Dark Souls 2. I'm sorry.
Yeah, silky smooth.
These two crow guys like exist in my head now. They've like welded themselves to my brain. I don't know how or why, but I'll be putting like mustard on a hot dog. My brain's like, yeah, so nice, so smooth. Yakuza Dead Souls. I bought this at Giant Tiger for 20 bucks like 50 years ago and never played it. I expected it to be a piece of crap, but this is actually pretty fun. The weird combination of melee and ranged, it kind of weirdly works. I would love to see them return to this idea. I even popped in GTA 4 for old time's sake. I haven't played that one since high school, and I never quite realized just how goofy and bouncy and fun the driving is in this one.
But when it comes to a blend of new and old, though, the Steam Deck has once again proven my console of choice this past year. I mean, I swear this thing can do anything. I recently found out that you can turn it into a PS Portal and stream your PlayStation 4 games from it, so I've been playing Yakuza Kiwami an hour before bed each night, just laying there, streaming it from my PS4. I really wanted to play Infinite Wealth, but I didn't want to pay that much for it. And I'm thinking, did I already have 2 Yakuza games I bought before that I've never touched? So I've actually been playing Kiwami a little bit this past year, and it's great. It's like a little bite-sized Yakuza. It's got a lot of the polish from Zero, but I kind of want to just finish it already because Kiwami 2, I hear, is like leaps and bounds better, and that's the one I really want to get to. But it was really cool seeing the origin of how Haruka and Kiryu met. Now, of course, I'm really excited for the Switch 2. I want to see what Animal Crossing's going to look like on that thing. Imagine a huge new Animal Crossing, but I don't know, something about being able to play a combined version of Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask Randomizer as Metal Sonic? I don't know, it's a good old reminder that Steam does what Nintendo never will.
And I guess that really is one of the biggest benefits of using a more PC-centric device, is you get all the mods, you get all the fan-made stuff. I've actually been replaying Bomb Rush Cyberpunk on this thing with mods, and I'm having a blast with it in a whole new way I never was before. Not only do I have countless characters to play as from all these different games that I love, I mean, I'm watching James Thunderflips do kicklands, my guy. But there's also a mod that completely overhauls the character movement. The physics are now so much fun that just going in a circle and trying to keep up your speed is a blast. I've also got some very unexpected ancient childhood games to run on it, particularly Hard Truck 2. I spent hours a day when I was 7 years old trucking down the highways on my old PC. Now I can relive that on the deck. I cannot believe this works and how well it controls and everything. I'm blown away, man. Thank you, Steam, for reuniting me with that one.
But ultimately, it's the convenience, man, that really makes this thing my favorite console ever created. I mean, there's games I've always wanted to play through, but I just never really found a convenient way. Like, Tulip is a big bucket list game for me, and having it on the PS3 is just, I don't know, I always fall off of it. I always never come back to it for some reason or another, but once it was in the palm of my hands and I could just put it in rest mode, take it out, and I'm just right there, and I can lay in my bed an hour before going to sleep each night, dude, I finally beat this game. I rolled credits on Tulip just a few weeks ago. This is one of my favorite games ever made.
Any real issues in the game are immediately fixed by the emulator's fast forward button, so I was just left with this delightful little town game, where you just want to learn everything about every character, how they're all connected, what they really think of each other, and how the quests all come together so nicely. I just love games that can take a small, tiny little space and elaborate the absolute heck out of it. Like, the game's map is not very big at all, yet there's a million secrets around every corner, hiding in plain sight. You just gotta let your curiosity find every cryptic little clue. Just hang out, watch the clock roll by as the town comes alive. Dude, I have not gotten this lost in a game's world in ages. You better believe that left me hungry for more. Like, I really want more games like this. And Stray Children, well, that's not going to be out in English for a good long while yet. It's by the same creators as Tulip, so stay tuned for that. Really excited for it. But I guess in the meantime, I figured, I don't know, I'll replay Sims Bustin' Out GBA again. But then it hit me. I remembered I've been meaning to play 24 Killers. This really is the same sort of game as Tulip. The art style, of course, is very different. I love the way this game looks. It almost looks like Yoshi's Story on N64, except pushed in such a cooler direction. It's that wonderful pre-rendered style where everything looks handcrafted. And I love how bizarre and funny the story is. Like, you're gonna be laughing, but they're gonna be putting concepts in front of you that's gonna get your brain whirling. But yeah, if you like Tulip and Little Town games like that, you gotta play 24 Killers. I think right now it's just on Steam. Speaking of small town games, oh my god, I gotta give a shout out to Starstruck The Hands of Time. I haven't seen anybody talking about this, and it's like, what? This thing's so cool though. I guess due to the butterfly effect, some mundane part of your mundane life is going to lead to the end of the world. So influence from beyond the stars and beyond our comprehension tries to influence things just a little bit to make sure that doesn't happen. You play as this young up-and-coming musician who's really trying to find his place in the world. He looks all around him and he sees people that he thinks are better than him, and he's thinking, how can I ever be as good as these people? It's a wonderful and goofy coming-of-age story mixed with some cosmic fun. This game really flew under the radar, so please give Starstruck some love. It's just on Steam right now. And if you also want to be talking about strange, surreal, silly, handcrafted indie games, then buddy, we gotta be talking about Jutaro. Stop-motion action-adventure game based all on Scottish mythology. Big bosses, beautifully unique graphics, and a soundtrack that's gonna make you want to sit by the river and stare at the ripples in the water.
Fiddler or a dancer, a plowboy or a sailor.
It's some of Jack King Spooner's finest, and yo, it's got me really excited for their next game, Machina. Oh, Jack and Tala, these two guys are dangerous. They working together, and I'm really excited to see what kind of banana stuff they're gonna be throwing out there. But there's just a little pinch of what I got in store for you so far this year, so
It's time for us to get in. How did that even happen?
These sunglasses just transform me into Squidward. What? These are my 10 favorite games that came out in 2024.
Number 10.
Exploding with joy, excitement, and previously unseen platformer polish, Astro Bot is just about as good as casual platformers can get. They ramp up the level design with that classic show, don't tell Nintendo philosophy. It makes no wonder why people are calling this game Mario Galaxy 3. Obviously, all the PlayStation homages are fun for us to recognize them all, but this is a kid's game for children. So what I'm really seeing here are the exciting conversations from parents to these kids that are full of curiosity for what came before. How many kids are gonna learn about Leon S. Kennedy because their dad told them all about him after they saw a funny robot doing a funny thing? Now, I'm not gonna pretend I'll be replaying this for years or anything. It is really simple and to the point. It's not quite a schmoovement game like my faves usually are, but hey, games like this are still majorly important, and to see such an unlikely combination of both budget and passion bringing something like this into the world, well, you do not see that very much these days. Sometimes games don't gotta be anything more than just a little clubhouse where you and your friends hang out. And lately, web fishing has been my go-to game like that. Extremely cheap and super simple. Just fish with your friends, upgrade your gear, and customize your little dude. What more could you want? I'm also a sucker for low poly critters at a low resolution, so that's pretty great too. My wife and me played a lot of this together, usually laying in bed, she's on her laptop, I'm laying there with my Steam Deck, and we're just spending the night fishing. The actual mini-game for when you catch a fish I think is also perfect. It's like just enough the way you hold, you gotta mash through, keeps it casual while keeping your attention. It's simple and great. Even the movement's pretty fun. The way you jump and dive and slide around, it's way more interesting than if you're like just holding forward, right? Just on Steam right now, don't be fooled by the rip-offs on console. I don't know how this is legal. Can Sony please get sued already? Now here's a horror game that is perfect for getting into horror games. Fear the Spotlight is pretty much to horror games what Astro Bot is to platformers. You know, it's aimed at giving everybody a smooth and comfortable experience, but it also harnesses the true potential of the genre. It's got wicked fun puzzles, incredible atmosphere, genuinely good scares that never rely on cheap, startling sounds, and a fantastic story that explores the tragedy that caused your school's fire all those years ago. And all without the usual stress of being overwhelmed by too many moving pieces or maybe characters that give chase too much. It is a prime example on how to reel things back without pulling your punches. It's fantastic for both existing horror fans and newcomers alike.
Number 7.
Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is the kind of puzzle game where you're gonna be busting out a pen and paper for it. It's a mansion of secrets and clues. Solutions are inferred from everything and anything, often in unusual ways. You play as a lost artist trying to find her way in the world as an unhinged eccentric filmmaker invites her to his hell mansion. To escape the maze, you'll have to navigate a cluster of memories, whether it be printed material or even video game prototypes. It is just oozing with that film noir style, and I love the themes of consumption versus creation. You know, it's like the frustration of how the way we measure and value things change the eyes that view what you make. If you love those real thinky type games with all that outside the box puzzle solving, then Lorelei is a fantastic Ridley romp with some wicked sharp style. This might just be my favorite looking game that came out all year. Crow Country is classic survival horror refined for modern audiences in the best way. That pre-rendered look is just so delightfully reminiscent of classic bubbly games, and seeing a horror twist on that, it was not only unexpected, but that unexpectedly clicked with my brain in a whole new magical way. The abandoned theme park proved to be a really good location for this sort of thing too, like all the silly puzzles, the secrets, the way you get into the back rooms, all the objects you find to use as key items. Raw, joyful creativity really holds this thing together in such a fresh way for horror games. Aiming and shooting, I love the way that feels. I'm always fond of something that's a little bit different than your standard over-the-shoulder aiming. I love laser pointer stuff like this, and the angle you view the game from, it makes the tension of approaching enemies and trying to land the shots like perfectly balanced. This is another game that's perfect for both the longtime horror fans and the people just starting out. Like, it is just so damn good at being both adorable and creepy as hell. A really good story too.
Number 5.
It is an incredibly surreal feeling having a new Silent Hill game come out and actually be pretty damn good. And yeah, I do say new game because just like the Resident Evil remakes, this really does stand alone as its own thing, just retelling the same story with a whole new lens. And wow, yeah, this is more or less how I always wanted a modern Silent Hill game to play like. The gunplay, the enemy types, all the scrapping together and saving your resources, it's all here. And it does offer a pretty dang good survival horror challenge. When you're doing horror games all over the shoulder like this, I love it when they have that sense of scramble. And that was something that I thought they did really well here, getting through these areas, sneaking around the enemies, trying to find the best way to go about things. It made so many sequences in this game just really fun to survive through. I did think it was a bit much with the AAA game, push the thing, watch your character do an animation that's probably covering up a loading screen or something, and I also think the game was way too long. Like, every area really needs to be a third of the length, but seeing all of these areas reimagined with new visuals and level design, that was really cool. I especially loved the prison, all that newfound verticality. You never had to worry about what was up above you before. All crawling around up there, that's scary. They certainly got the atmosphere right, from the fog to the shadows, all the way to the rust. It does a pretty good job of bringing the horrors of Silent Hill into a whole new generation.
Oh, toilet. Scared the shit out of me.
I thought the characters were handled mostly pretty well. Wasn't too huge on Maria, but Eddie was fantastic, and everybody else is fine. It's a totally solid version of the story, and in some minor ways I would even say it's enhanced here. But overall, no, it doesn't even come close to replacing the original or anything. There's so many things I think were handled far better with, and with more subtlety on PS2 as well. The effect just isn't the same, even if I do think the remake is good. So anybody that really enjoyed this remake, I hope someday they will play the original as well. I already talked about this game for like 2+ hours on the internet, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts, they're right over there. But yeah, I was so skeptical of this game being any good at all, and yeah, while it is far from perfect, it is amazing finally seeing something come from the series that I actually got to have a lot of fun with.
Number 4.
This one I think the less you know about going in, the better. Mouthwashing is a first-person adventure horror game. You walk around, you search for items, talk to the crew, and try to figure out just what the hell to do about the situation you're all in. This was probably one of the most talked about games last year, and for good reason, dude. The story here is one of the most potent I've played in years. I just can't stop thinking about it because of how much it perfectly nails the nuance of situations like this. Now, there's so many real-ass themes in here. Like, I thought we would just be exploring cosmic human exploitation, kind of like Signalis, but no, it takes such a socially psychological turn at a point, and it really ended up being something far bigger than I expected. It is disturbing, uncomfortable, and human as hell. I really think these are some of the best written characters I've spent time with all year. I'll keep it short and sweet, but if you like horror games with stories that'll disturb and stick with you forever, dude, do not sleep on Mouthwashing.
Number 3.
When I first heard that Sonic Generations was getting some re-release with a Shadow the Hedgehog side thingy, my first thought was, well, I'm not spending that much money on a game I already bought 10 years ago. My second thought was the usual Sonic pessimism. There's no way this is gonna be any good. Last time level design in a boost formula game was a straight line in Sonic Forces. My third thought was, I should borrow that from Brady. And upon playing it, my fourth thought was, oh my god, whoa, hold on, whoa, what the fuck? I cannot believe how good this game is. And it's not just a dumb little side thing like I thought it would be, because that would just imply that they swapped the model and just made more levels with the existing pool of obstacles and assets. But no, this is a genuine sequel because it alters and expands upon the game's core mechanics. Not locked to the existing moves and gimmicks of the original generations, Shadow not only brings brand new ways to interact with the level to the table, allowing for even greater variety in how you tackle things, but the level design is like wicked sick. The Dicky Island and back. The levels are so well put together, man. They're so well thought out, and there's so many different ways that you can go and take. And every time I died, I was never frustrated because every time I was like, yo, what about that way though? That Sonic Frontiers level, why is that one of the best Sonic levels ever made? What is going on here? That alien whip power, the way that there's so many different things you can do with it, that is such a cool new mechanic. Like, that's the kind of game-changing shit that makes a sequel a goddamn sequel. Oh my god, isn't that just proof right there? The Generations was never about the nostalgia and was always just about good-ass level and game design, man.
It's like Sonic Frontiers. I don't care about Sonic Frontiers. I played that game like one time with Brady for an hour, and it was okay. It was fine. I didn't mind it.
But I do not have an emotional attachment to that imagery in the same way that, like,
you know, the kind of stuff the Sonic Adventure 2 stuff does in my brain.
No, like, that just ends up being this wicked sick bonus because the effort is put into where it matters, making a game that you just want to play over and over and over. It's genuinely the best Sonic game since Sonic Generations. Like, this is the first boost type game where the jump has this really smoothly controlled freedom to it. You can jump off of rails whenever you want now, just like you could in Adventure 2. Nudging everything in that direction, it really improves the sense of freedom you have in this one. And of course, the frontier stuff in the hub world was good junk food. You know, all these obstacles hardly have a purpose, but it's a fun way to hop around the hub world with all these great little distractions to do between levels. I also think it's just been amazing seeing Shadow getting such good treatment as of late in general, because I really do think Shadow the Hedgehog is a very special character that holds a very unique place in popular culture. I mean, he's like the cornerstone of stupidly mishandled tone in children's media, right? And we all make fun of it. But over time, that only ever really benefited Shadow's cultural presence, you know? It gave us more reason to share him, talk about him, derive joy from the character. And you know, over time, once that imagery becomes more and more disconnected from the mess in which it came from, all that's left is like a lot of really cool imagery, a lot of laughs, a wicked good character design, and yeah, a backstory that has absolutely always had a ton of potential. Because I mean, a character is really only just a puppet, right? It's just an idea, it's just shapes and colors. It's really down to the puppeteer to make something meaningful of the idea. So like, were we ever really making fun of the idea of Shadow? Or were we ever just simply making fun of the puppeteers? And I really do think it is that magical, precise combination of things that you can't really do on purpose that made Shadow the cultural titan he is, because underneath all of the goof and edge and mishandlement is a story you do want to see get told. So to see that story told again with such a ribbon on it, and told yet again in a whole new interpretation that nails every aspect of it and handles it with a care that you never got to see it handled with as a kid. I don't know. I just think there's something really fucking special about that. Elden Ring showed me that all I really want from life is a good Souls game with a jump button. I want a game like this, but also it's a platformer. I've bounced off a number of games trying to capture what From does, but dude, this time I was glued like butter. Another Crab's Treasure. Now this game's got pretty much everything you'd want from that kind of thing. The heavy, satisfying combat that hits hard, the excellent world building and exploration, the gigantic, challenging boss fights, even a big-ass poison swamp, and even, surprisingly enough, those grim, dark themes of resource-hungry societal failure. How we build our kingdoms upon rot, and once that kingdom rots, we build the next one upon that rot. Beyond the platforming twist, you've also got this sick-ass shell mechanic. Just grab whatever's laying around and use it as a shield. But every single one comes with a unique ability, so you get all these scenarios where you're improvising with whatever's around you, and maybe situations where you're scrounging up a favorite in preparation of something. And the amount the game feels directly connected to actual reality also really helps its sense of weight. How every enemy is a real type of crab, no matter how strange or weird. How every boss, no matter how squeamishly horrific a concept, are all based on real things that really exist down deep in the ocean. It's kind of like a reminder that real horrifying things exist here in our real world, and that's just so fun. You know, it's got this bloodborne-ass sense of viscera, even that one really creepy boss towards the end. I'm not spoiling what it is, but I looked up what that was on Wikipedia, and like how that works organically, that threw my brain down an existential hole. But that's how you can tell how much love and care went into this game. Like, there's a real love for the ocean and all of the weird things it produces and hides, and it had me looking things up and going, oh wow, no, that's a real thing. Whether you like FromSoft games for the lore or the gameplay, Another Crab's Treasure really has it all going on. It is a bit rough in some areas, you know, around the edges design-wise here and there, I will admit, but dude, it just filled that From jumping void so perfectly well that, yeah, this ended up being my second favorite game all year. Growing up, I always had this weird NES cartridge called 31-in-1. Weird looking for NES, isn't it? It's a pirate cartridge. Back in the 80s, pirates would dump their own Famicom games and translate them themselves before reselling them as these big collections, reusing the Famicom carts. Over the years, people kinda ended up with these, whether they found it at a pawn shop not knowing what it was, or they got it as a hand-me-down, and my dad had this when I was born. This, when I was a little tiny toddler, this was my window into so many NES games all at once. And it was so cool because even if something didn't really stick with me, if I didn't like it, I could have been like, okay, that was a neat idea. It was cool seeing the graphics, a different type of game. Let's move on to something new now. And eventually you find something unexpected that really clicks, and then 6-year-old James is spending hours a day playing pool on his NES, and I actually thought pool was called Lunar Ball for many years when I was a kid because of this. It was Action 52 except good, except also illegal, I guess, but imagine if that was a game. And I don't just mean like a collection of 58-bit games, no, I mean, what if that experience was a game? UFO 50 is a miracle from the goddamn digital gods, dude! 50 unique, simple, yet complex games that explore just about every wicked, sick, polished idea 8-bit machines are capable of. I'm talking side-scroller, strategy, shoot-'em-up, stealth, puzzles, exploration, RPGs, dungeon-crawling, point-and-click, party game, intergalactic, unethical gambling. You tell me this thing doesn't have it all. The sense of 8-bit style here is out of this world. The sprites always feel readable, but lovable. They're so big and chunky with so many cute, wonderful character designs, and God, every game I would boot up, I would literally say out loud, oh my god, this is such an NES title screen. But it is the design of each game that you're really here for. I mean, this thing is just so interested in exploring nothing but pure game design. If it's a side-scroller, it's nothing like any of the other side-scrollers. The way the jump feels, the actions you can do, the goal, the level design, it is bonkers, bananas even. How much there is to each game, and how much they manage to make them all feel totally different too. I mean, even if they have a direct sequel there, it's not even just the same game but more. No, they always do something new with it. Campanella, for example, it's a very simple throttle the helicopter obstacle course type game. The physics here are really fun, but there's not a whole lot to the actual game. But Campanella 2 flips that all completely on its head. You can get out of the spaceship, and now it's a lot more like Blaster Master. You can go in caves, and they got these side-scrolling segments, and then Campanella 3 is not even the same type of game at all. Mortal is another great example. This is one of my favorites. You start the level with like 20 lives, and along the way you have to sacrifice them in one of 3 ways. Explode them to get rid of some blocks, make a stone platform that you can jump on or weigh something down, or stick yourself in a wall so the next guy can jump up on you. Oh, I love that. How do I even describe this, like, gameplay contextual kind of sense of humor? Like, what's going on is hilarious nonsense, but it makes for such good game design that you're kind of laughing along with a game that's super fun to play. But anyway, Mortal 2 takes this entire idea and makes it a Metroidvania, where it's this huge open world that you're making slight changes to. Barbuda is such a cool game. It takes the game feel of the original Donkey Kong, the way you climb ladders, the way they jump. This is Donkey Kong, but they turned it into Zelda 2. This is one of my favorites in the whole collection, like going through it again and again until I knew my way around and learned all the little tricks. It's kind of like that Zelda 1 cryptic experience, but way more digestible. And I love how quiet this one is. Like, some of these games have this really eerie quietness to them. There's something really nice about it, actually. Mini and Max, this one is just unreal. This one could be its own entire game. You see this? Okay, yeah, so, yeah, that's the whole game right there. It's kind of like a world map, actually. So you hop around somewhere, you hold down on the D-pad, and yeah, the implications of that are exactly what you think. It's this huge open world adventure game where you unlock abilities and experience this whole story, and it is, like, ridiculous in scope and ridiculous in fun. It kind of plays like Super Mario Bros. 2, picking things up and throwing them around. Planet Zoldath is like a randomized Star Trek NES game where you have to learn what every alien's role is, who you can trade with, who's hostile, where the items are, and you basically take this improvisational route through the game. Koala Blocks is like a brand new take on the kind of game that Adventures of Lolo was. Magic Garden is a wicked fun twist on classic Snake. Avianos is a simple board game, kind of like Risk, where you're praying to your dinosaur ancestors, leveling up your gods, and basically conquering the whole map. Oh, my wife and me are like obsessed with this one on 2-player, and yeah, like literally half of these games have a 2-player mode. Some co-op and some versus. Party House is my top played game though. It's so addicting, dude. It's kind of like blackjack. You know, you open the door, hit me, that kind of thing. Who comes in? Spend your earnings between the rounds to basically add card cards to the deck sort of thing. You know, like you're adding different partygoers to the pool of potential guests, and they all have their own unique quirks and abilities, so there ends up being like a ridiculous amount of strategy to this thing, which is bonkers because the first time I played it, I thought like nothing was happening. I actually thought there was no gameplay. But yeah, dude, like it is so addicting. I mean, like forget Balatro or Balatro or Bologno or whatever it's called. I'm too busy partying. Mooncat was the very first one I clicked on, and yo, I rolled credits on this thing before I even selected another game. This is the perfect one to start with, if you ask me. It's very simple in scope and concept, but it's weird as hell in how it controls. It's so neat. Quibble Race also gets a shout out for being totally absurd and wacky, and also a damn fun version of like those old gambling simulators. It's basically horse betting, except you can do illegal things like paying underground sketchy guys to bust some of the horse's knees. Oh, and the train robbery turn-based stealth game, that was an unexpected hit too. You get so little time to make a couple of actions before they start to look for you. Devolition is amazing fun. You set up a big long Ruth Goldberg machine, series of chain reaction nonsense, let it fly, and see if you knocked out all the demons. Bug Hunter is another amazing strategy game. This one is about spending attack and movement points to dance around the field and grab the coins, obliterate the vermin before they overwhelm the crap out of you. Overbold was the first one I got really addicted to. It is so damn hard. You have to survive all of these rounds, you jack up the stakes between rounds, and using your winnings, you gotta buy all this gear to make it easier. It's like a roguelike, you know, so the harder you make it, the more decked out you can get, and you want to do that as early as possible. It is so hard to get through this whole thing, because just one death and the whole thing's over. So you gotta land that one run where everything goes perfectly magically well, and you survive all the way to the very end. Many of these are arcade-like in nature, either with lives or some sense of carrying yourself skillfully through one good playthrough. But many others are more like, you know, save and continue type games with a grander scope or more divided up level type structures so you can go back to it easily. So let's say I pop on Velgris. You die so easy in this game, then it's all the way back to the very beginning when you do. So you see how far I can make it until I get that one death that just pisses me off so much I quit, and then I go back to tons of other stuff. Maybe I do another level in Koala Blocks, maybe another level in that Dino Defense game, Rock On Island. That's another favorite. I freaking love Rock On Island. Or maybe hop on to another arcade-like and try your luck there. And this game's got hella secrets too. You may notice that terminal. Ooh, what's that about? Can you uncover the cryptic clues and find all of UFO 50's secrets? I bet you can. Now, not every single game in here is my kind of jam, you know, mostly the space shooters. I glaze right past that stuff, so don't expect to be way into every game you try here. Don't treat it like this WarioWare list of objectives, you know, there are cherries to get on the games you love, but it's really about trying everything, but letting just a handful click. And besides, with so many games here, it is amazing fun just jumping into a random one, tapping the buttons, and just figuring out what it even is, what you can do. Every game only uses 2 buttons. Start and select are universal for menus. So if you want like an entire game where the whole thing is just learning game after game after game with zero tutorial, just classic like Nintendo, Capcom, NES, teach it yourself seamlessly just by tapping the buttons on the controller, it's that over and over and over and over and over. It is an indescribably cool experience. And once you finally scraped through it all and you've got your favorites, that's what the cherries are for. Keep at it, maybe this time. It is so much fun that it's almost a bummer when you finally get the cherry. Now for those that are curious, here are my most played games, and yeah, I guess you can see which ones I've beaten and which ones I've cherried so far too, but I expect to be hammering away at this all next year. I cannot stop playing these games. In just 2 months of playing this thing, it has quickly risen to the very top of my most played games on Steam. Granted, I've only really been a frequent Steam user since getting a Steam Deck 2 years back, but still, I expect that number to keep crawling up and up a good ways yet. When they say play forever, they frickin' mean it. This thing may have been inspired by the past, but you're gonna be playing it forever into the future!
This is how we will play video games in the future!
No, it happened again.